Hey, Brother Dave here. Brother Dave's Hillbilly Homestead. We're out behind the barn today, and I got a little project that's is worth sharing. We're building. Whoops! You don't want to look at my ugly mug. I know that. Boom! Building a compost pile. Now this is contained in chicken wire because I want to, for one thing, I want to hold it together, but I also want to keep the chickens out of there, because if the chickens get on your compost pile, like they've done with all the rest of my compost piles, they just scratch it all down to nothing and eat up all the bugs. And well, that's great for the chickens. They'll lay more eggs. Fantastic. But one thing I need to do is to create ultra rich compost to use as potting soil in my greenhouse garden. I went to Lowe's and bought some potting soil this year. Spent probably $150. It's $10 a bag for the good stuff, and that's not even as nearly as good as you can make yourself. And it's sterilized as well for the most part, so it's kind of a dead organic compost, and it'll grow stuff, but you need to add fertilizer and stuff like that. Well, I don't want to add fertilizer, and I might not always be able to get fertilizer. But I do have some vermiculture bins inside the greenhouse that are growing earthworms, and I do that almost specifically for the purpose of when they're maturing, and I get about 1,000 worms in there. I can take 300 or 400 worms, throw them on top of this compost pile, and they'll burrow into that compost pile and eat it all up and make the most amazing worm casting, organic filled compost imaginable. It's just going to be really, really awesome. And the nice thing about using the worms to do your composting is you don't have to get in there and constantly turn this thing over, turn it over, turn it over. It'll get a warm spot, and the worms will seek the best place in the pile to go where the temperature is just right, and then they'll consume everything there and move their way up and down throughout the pile. And all you do is keep adding stuff to the top. And oh, by the way, I'll throw my humanure out of my 5-gallon buckets on here as well. That's pretty simple to do. Chicken wire. I got some 5-foot stakes beat down into the ground about a little more than a foot. A little more than a foot with a sledgehammer. Nothing fancy. No fancy tools for that. And it goes in, you have to pick a good spot where there's not a lot of rocks. Your 4-foot tall chicken wire. A big roll of that cost me about $50, but hey, that's enough to make 10 or 15 of these big compost piles. And I'm going to make, I would say should make at least half a dozen of them. And this is a good area to do it in right here, because we're short of where the kudzu starts invading, and the chickens have cleaned it all up nicely. Yeah, I got a kudzu problem down yonder. And here on this side, another good place to just line out a whole bunch of compost piles. Now, besides the location being open, down here in this ravine, we get a huge accumulation of leaves. Every time it gets windy, all the leaves blow down off of these hills, and they all settle down into this ravine. So it makes gathering your compost material much, much easier. It's all right there for you, and it's all going to be right close to where my compost piles are. All right, you'll note these thin little wires right here that I use to twist tie all this together to the post. That is the wire that comes on the roll that binds it together, and that's just really convenient to use. I don't know if they mean for you to use it that way, but it's really convenient to use, so remember that. You don't need to buy extra wire to bind it to the pole, because it comes attached to the chicken wire already. You just have to unravel it and use it. And you need a pair of tin snips. Where'd my tin snips go? Tin snips right there. Yeah, use a pair of tin snips when you finally get going to cut it off. All right, we'll stop now, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's completely built. All right, that's the basic structure. Real quick and easy to do. It took me about, I think 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because I'm a lollygagger and I like to sit down and take breaks. but it basically kind of holds its own form, and that'll hold a whole lot of leaves. Next step, fill it with leaves, compost, and compostable things. Worms really love old dead leaves as a source of food. So that's what we're going to start with, and we'll throw some human manure in there once we get a pretty good bed of leaves, because you don't want the earthworms won't do well in human manure directly. So you kind of throw that on the top after you've got a big layer of leaves plus the worms down in there, and then the human manure slowly rot and leach down through. All right, I'll show you next. I'll show you how we go about collecting compost and maybe picking up the trash around the yard. You think that's a good idea? Guppy, you're in the video. Guppy, do you think it's a good idea to pick up the trash in the yard? Yes, you do, don't you? Okay. All right, ready to start gathering up the compost. All right, you tired of looking at me? Yes, you go. Now I had two choices here. I could use a pitchfork or a snow shovel. I'm thinking this stuff is so thick that a snow shovel is just going to be the easiest way to do this. Boom, there you go. See? Pick it up, dump it in. So we'll fill those up 3 or 4 times until the compost bin gets about full, almost all the way up to the top. Then we'll show you the next step. All right, that's about as full as we want it. Did all that with just that bucket and that snow shovel, and we took out leaves from right where the shovel is, about 30 or 40 feet up there, scraped them off the path and scraping them down off the hill. So it was a lot of organic debris piled up in that one spot, just like I thought. So that's one thing about homesteading too, is you need to take time to observe things. Take a year before you start knocking trees down and knocking bushes down, because when you don't know what they are, that might be something you need. Like, for example, I just sold 80 acres to a young couple and their parents, real nice people, and they want to build a homestead. And first thing they started doing was ripping out all the shrubbery at the edge of the forest, all the autumn olives, and all kinds of things. I had no idea what they were ripping out. It's just like, well, we want to clear it out so it looks nice. And, yeah, okay. I just gave them a little hint about that. They didn't really listen. Hey, I don't push my ideas on people. I just give them good advice when I can. All right, next step here is to douse this thing with a whole bunch of water. It's not packed real hard. I just kind of went through and, pushed on it by hand to pack it in lightly, because you want those air spaces in there so that you get aerobic decomposition. You do not want to mash it down real hard so the oxygen can't get in there, and then you end up with anaerobic decomposition, which creates ammonia, all kinds of nasty stuff, hydrogen sulfide, and anaerobic bacteria, which are the really nasty ones. A staph infection, for example, will eat you alive, literally. That's not what you want. So next step, let's go fill some buckets with water and come back. All right, here we are at our water source. We just use that 5-gallon bucket to transfer to that one. We'll fill it up probably about 2/3. And that just takes a couple minutes, not very long. Okay, we're going to use that watering can instead of the 5-gallon bucket, because we want to slowly kind of add the water to this so it soaks into the leaves and doesn't all run off. And so I'll get up here, stand up, and just slowly add it in there. We'll let it go for about 24 hours after that. Let it completely soak in. It'll settle a little bit more. And then we will add the worms. And I'll show you that tomorrow. All right. Guppy, you want to be in the video? Yes, you do. God loves you. I love you. And most of all, Guppy loves you. All right, Brother Dave. Brother Dave's Hillbilly Homestead. We're out in the greenhouse today. We're going to try and finish this video on vermi composting. Vermi composting means composting using worms. Whereas rather than having a compost pile where we have to toss it around and turn it over, and well, that's a lot of work. And you know, as you get older, you begin to realize you only get so many bendovers in life. You young people don't know. You use all them bendovers like you got as many as you can possibly get. But as you get older, you realize, boy, I only got so many bendovers left. So use them bendovers judiciously. Wise word for the day. Now, you can stop looking at my ugly mug. And look at our vermicomposting bin that we got from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. Been running this for about 3 months. And I don't pay it much attention. It kind of runs itself. We just kind of throw whatever garbage in there that we have, and I occasionally check the moisture and see if there's any worms. Oh yeah, we got worms and worms. Yeah, and this is the top layer. Yeah. Oh, look at all that. Oh, rich, amazing worm castings. Okay, so a worm will eat about half its weight every day in garbage, and it's mostly green garbage, brown garbage. We got a old sweet potato in there. It's getting ripe. Now the bacteria and mold will break it down to start with, and then the worms will come in and do the rest. And I throw in a bunch of eggshells because I just don't know what else to do with my eggshells. And we got a bunch of dirt too that came from our through some artichoke harvest. All right, well, I got to harvest some worms to put in the vermicompost pile. So here we go. We're going to harvest from here. Let's see how much we got. Oh yeah. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at all them wonderful worms. And I don't know if I can show you. I got only one hand. Well, they're coming out the bottom too, and we got a whole bunch in here. We got to harvest. Oh man, we got to harvest all that stuff and put it on our plants. That is black gold there. Absolute black gold. So we got 2 bins like this, and I'll show you how we harvest the worms here. Yeah, I need to get me a GoPro camera that I can attach to my head so you all can watch what I do. But basically, I just kind of went through by hand and picked out about 50 good-looking worms. Those are good, healthy-looking European night crawlers. And all right, we'll have to pay attention to this bin today after we finish the creating the vermicompost pile. I'm going to come back in here and harvest all this. Oh man, amazing stuff, and we'll make a separate video on that, on how to harvest it and cycle through it to get the worm casting separate, and then separating out your worms to keep them going. But so far so good. If you're not running your worm farm right, the worms will escape. If they don't have enough moisture or enough food, too much sunlight, something like that, too hot, too cold, they will all crawl out and go elsewhere. And you'll open this up and you'll find no worms at all. So this has been really successful. All right, let's take a hike up to the vermicompost pile here real quick. We'll inoculate that with the worms. Now 50 worms might not sound like too much. Hey Guppy, you want to be in the video? Yes you do. Now you're in the video, Guppy. Guppy always wants to be in the video. Always wants to go with me. Whenever I get in the car, she's got to go. We get in the mule, she's got to go. Even if I only drive the mule 6 feet, well, she's got to be in there with me or she's upset. All right. Well, it's a beautiful April morning in the low 60s. We're getting out here without even a shirt on, and it feels pretty good. All right, now you can see after we put the dumped water all over this, it knocked down the volume just a bit, which is good. Now it's nice and wet in there. I'm just going to dig a little hole, dump those worms. See that little hole right there? Dump them right in there. And there they go. Now, just lightly cover them. All right. And that's the most important part of vermicomposting, adding the worms. We've also got, see that 30-gallon barrel down there with the urn on top of it? That's all full of chicken manure and pine shavings from cleaning out the chicken coop. And I'll have to clean out the chicken coop again today. But that's perfect to throw in your vermicomposting pile. You can't throw chicken poop directly on your garden. It has to age for a year, so it's going to age in the pile back there. The chicken poop will add all kinds of nitrogen and potassium and phosphorus to the vermicompost. And well, this is going to be something. Too bad we have to wait a whole year to see the results, but that's basically how you get your vermicompost started. And we'll be throwing 5-gallon buckets of human manure on top of that too. I'm going to wait till 2 or 3 days to start throwing the human manure on, because I want those worms to migrate down and around to wherever they're comfortable with. I don't want to throw that human manure directly on top of them. That might not be real healthy for them. Well, that's it for our vermicomposting video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. God loves you. I love you. Guppy loves you too. Guppy, quit eating the chicken food. I swear your mama was a chicken, Guppy.